Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Welcome to the messengers in our home. Hello, dear Kardec Radio listeners. Welcome to the messengers in our home. My name is Franziska Kranz.
And I am Mackenzie Mellon.
So here we are. Nosolar is gone, so to speak. And today we are going to start to talk about the second book of the Andrew Lewis series, which is called The Messengers. But before we start, Mackenzie, would you be so kind and say a little opening prayer for us, please?
Oh yeah, sure, Francisca. Dear God, dear Master and Brother Jesus, here we are once again to start a new program on Kardec Radio. This time with the study of the book The Messengers. And we would like, as always, first of all to thank you for the great opportunity of having the chance to read and reflect upon these messages that can clearly change our lives by inspiring us and nourishing our souls. But we would also like to ask your protection for this work and to protect all the spirits that are connected to Kardec Radio so that we together can make this work a work of light for the lives of all of us who are listening to this right now. May your love and your compassion fill us and fill us, making us a better one to help you improve this world we all live in. So be it.
So be it. Okay, so just to, get started from the beginning, I guess. So the original title in Portuguese was first published in 1944, so soon after Nosolar actually. And the medium was Chico Xavier, and the spirit is Andrew Lewis, who used to be a physician in Rio de Janeiro, and explains to us what happened to him in the afterlife. So Nosolar is the first chapter where he explains what happens after his physical body died. And now he's already been working in Nosolar for more than a year, and he's gonna have some new experiences and learn about what the messengers from the spirit world are. Right, Mackenzie?
Yeah, Francisca, that's right. If we go back just a little bit to Nosolar, we remember that at the very end of the book, Andre becomes a citizen of Nosolar. Clarencio comes and tells him that he is now a citizen of Nosolar, and saying almost as if, okay, from now on, you can walk and do basically any kind of work or learning in Nosolar with more freedom without anybody just, taking a look and looking over your shoulder, doing anything. So what happens here in The Messengers is that he will now start learning more and more about all the tasks that are done there, but basically following these messengers or following a group of spirits who made some mistakes and then coming back to Earth to check how these messengers work and what they do when they come back to Earth to help and to check on spirits who are during their incarnation working and sometimes suffering and having their lives. And also, Francisca, this new book, it is a little bit different than what we had in No Solar, although some people say that because it's a continuation, it's a very close continuation to what just happened in No Solar. Some people say that could be called No Solar number 2. No Solar 2, as in these days that we have in movies, sequels and so on, because it starts basically right after the other one, where the other one left. So it's similar in that sense, because it will keep following Andre in No Solar and going to work with some of the characters from the previous book will show up, some of those spirits, but we will be presented to new spirits there doing different types of work. But it also is a little bit different because it's not about Andre, right? The first book, it was about Andre. And this book now, although we are following him, we're not talking about Andre's life. We're talking about other spirits' lives, right? And this book will be divided in 3 different parts, which we can say that one of the parts will be talking about mediums who are discarnated, and they had specific tasks when they were reincarnating, but then they didn't follow those guidelines that they set for themselves when incarnated. We can relate to those because they are regular spirits, they are regular people incarnating, and we can feel how hard it is for us to really follow what we decided that we would do. This is the very first part of the book. It's not there in the book. If you have the book in your hands right now, you won't be able to see the difference between the first part and second part and third part. There's no physical division, but it's from more or less from chapter 1 to chapter 13. Okay, and then right after this first part, we have the second part, right, Francisco, that starts on chapter 14?
Yeah, Mackenzie, that's right. And there we've got the description of some services to incarnates and discarnates likewise through the team of the messengers of No Solar. So there's a specific group of more enlightened spirits who are helping us here on Earth, and also the spirits in the spirit world whenever we need, basically. And more from chapter 14 to 32, we've got quite a few stories of how this work can look like. So just reminding that everything that we do and what the book offers are examples, basically, because life in the spirit world is so diverse and so vast that we can't possibly imagine everything that exists there, although that is the origin of ourselves, and we are only here for a temporary learning period on Earth, incarnated, or on other planets for that matter, depending on where we are evolutionary speaking. And then in the third part, from chapter 33 onwards, André Luis and Vicente are going with their spirit guide Aniceto, and they do an Indian trip in the center of the messengers, or in the messenger centers, and then they go from No Solar towards the Earth, and there in the middle they stay for a night at it's like an aid station, so to speak, and there they stay and learn and help a little bit. And they get to know spiritual friends that are responsible for a different colony, which is called Field of Peace, and that is situated quite close to this aid station. And then later on, the 3 of them go down to the Earth and stay for 1 week in a very humble home, but which is truly a resting point or a support point for the spiritual colony of No Solar on Earth. And there they participate and help incarnates and discarnates and learn a lot about mediumship meetings. Do you want to add something, Mackenzie?
No, that's basically how these 3 parts go. And it's interesting that the spirits that planned this book, together with the spirits that planned No Solar, they divided No Solar had 50 chapters. This one has 51 chapters, right? But it is very interesting because the very first book, No Solar, although it has 50 chapters, it has to some degree 2 introductions, so that would add up to 52 chapters. And this one has an introduction and 51 chapters. So we also have 52 chapters. It is very interesting because it is almost as if these books were planned for us to use them in a year, so that we can read chapter by chapter, week by week, and have a full year of learning and of studying. So it is basically what we did with No Solar, and it is what we're going to do with the Messengers, right, Francisca? We're going to have this another full year of studying week by week, chapter by chapter, so that we can have a week to reflect upon what we just heard and what we just lived, and then the week after we go to another chapter, reading a second one and improving on what we have learned from the previous weeks.
Yeah, that's true. It's like, we went from the first school year to second grade now in our spiritual studies. And it's really important that we take this time also, that we make this book become alive in our lives, in our hearts, so that we connect the theoretic knowledge, like the brain knowledge, and connect it to the feelings of our hearts, because all these beautiful insights and teachings, they don't really help us that much if we are not able to put it into practice in our daily lives. And that is one of our main objectives in doing this weekly study groups on Kardec Radio, to help us all to not only understand in a theoretic way, but also to stimulate us and motivate us to take bit by bit these inspirations into our daily lives. Right, Mackenzie?
Yeah, that's right, Francisca. And that's one of the reasons why we decided that today we would have just this very, very brief conversation about the book. Just giving a very, very 10,000 foot view of the book, saying the number of chapters and talking just a little bit about this division in 3 parts. And maybe during what we're going to start now, to some degree, we can touch, and we will probably touch in one of the passages of the book. But what we really want to do is just to start the study of the book with the reading of the preface, right, Francisca? That's written by Emmanuel, as basically all the books by Chico Xavier. Mainly all the prefaces are written by Emmanuel, who is the spirit guide of Chico Xavier. If you want to know a little bit more about Emmanuel and about Chico Xavier, who is this medium, he already passed away, he already discarnated, but who lived in Brazil. In the very first lesson of last year's No Solar in Our Home, we had a larger discussion of who Chico Xavier was and who Emmanuel was. So we're just saying that Chico was a great medium, a great human being, and Emmanuel is the spirit who guided him through life. And this spirit is the one who wrote the preface of No Solar, which we read last year, and then he also wrote the preface of this book, which he entitled also as the title of the book, Preface, The Messengers. And we're just gonna read this preface and make some comments and already start this journey through the messengers, bringing the messengers into our homes.
So, this book describes some of the experiences of messengers from the spirit world, because the landscapes, observations, activities and events it depicts seem so physical. Many readers will undoubtedly conclude, according to old philosophical concepts, that it's all just a product of the human brain. One must realize, however, that the brain is the apparatus of reasoning, and that the ordinary event of physical death does not enable discarnate humans to suddenly enter the realms of the angels. On the contrary, they continue to face their own conscience, struggling to enlighten their minds, and in a different vibrational sphere, they prepare to continue their journey toward perfection. No one can elude the laws of evolution. If a chimpanzee living in a palace were to find a way to write to his brothers and sisters of the same level of evolution, it would find almost no fundamental differences to report. It could tell them about a more improved animal life, and perhaps the only aspect that it could not describe would be the aureole of reason enveloping the human spirit. As for ways of life per se, the differences would not be profoundly perceptible. Plain animal hair would find continuity in modern cashmeres and silks. The order of nature in the jungle home would be the same order that lends stability to the human home. The cave will have been transformed into a stone building. The green meadow may be likened to the cultivated garden. The means of continuing the species would be nearly the same. The law of heredity would continue with minor modifications. The same tendencies would be displayed regarding nutrition. The unity of family kinship would reveal the same strong ties. Thus, the chimpanzee would only find it difficult to describe the problems of work, responsibility, an enriched memory, a purified sentiment, and spiritual growth. In short, all the problems resulting from the acquisition of reason. Consequently, there is no real justification for the amazement of those who read messages of the caliber of the ones that Andrew Lewis addresses to individuals who are devoted to spiritual growth. Ordinary men and women long for something extraordinary to happen. They forget that nature is not concerned with satisfying their individual, particular points of view. Physical death is not an unbalanced leap. It is merely one evolutionary step, like our chimp that discovered an ennobled animal life in the human environment. Humans who merit entry into the higher circles of the invisible after physical death discover a higher level of human life. Of course, a great number of problems having to do with higher spirituality await them, challenging their understanding as they ascend sublimely toward the illumined realms of light. Progress does not grind to a halt at death. Souls continue to press onward, attracted by the light of immortality. However, the philosophical conclusions of this simple preface are not what have induced us to write it, but rather the need to disclose to our friend, the reader, holy opportunities for work during these trying times. Happy are they who seek in the new revelation their arena of service while on earth, their place in harmony with God's will. Christian Spiritism does not offer humankind only an area of study and consultation where only a few studious individuals treat worthily. It does much more than that. It reveals a workshop of renewal where each consciousness in training must seek his or her rightful integration into the higher life through inner effort, self-discipline, and self-improvement. There is no lack of divine cooperation for the willing worker. And whoever observes the noble work of an Aniceto will realize that it is not easy for spirits to offer assistance to humans. Bringing the fraternal collaboration of the higher planes down to incarnate spirits is not some mechanical process based on principles of least effort. So that they may receive such aid, incarnates cannot evade the imperative to cleanse the vessel of their hearts in order to receive the living water, shedding their worldly rags and putting on the wedding garments of light eternal. Thus, happy at having fulfilled our duty, dear reader, we present you with the second book by André Lewis. It is a partial account of 1 week of spiritual work by messengers of the good as they work alongside incarnate humans. Above all, it portrays the character of a conscientious emissary and generous benefactor in the person of Aniceto, and it stresses the need for moral discipline for those who devote themselves to the noble activities of the faith in the arena of service. My friend, if you are seeking the spiritual light, if materialistic existence has buried your heart, remember that in spiritualism, investigation always leads to the infinite, found in the realm of the infinitesimal as well as in the realm of the distant stars. And only self-transformation in the light of higher spirituality will enable you to draw from the founts of the divine life. And above all, remember that these uplifting messages from the beyond are not meant to be a mere expression of emotion. They are intended primarily for your understanding as a child of God, so that you will take inventory of your own accomplishments and truly hand yourself over to the responsibility of living in the presence of the Lord. Emmanuel, Pedro Leopoldo, Brazil, February 26, 1944. Wow, Mackenzie.
Yeah, so many things that we can comment on here. I just want to point out that there's a point in the message, in this preface, where Emmanuel says the expression new revelation, right? And there's a translator's note at the end of the preface saying that the new revelation that Emmanuel is referring to is Spiritism. In Spiritism, we call Spiritism sometimes as the third revelation, so that's what Emmanuel is referring to here. It is, as always, and as very usual for us who are studying and living the Spiritist life, is, if we can call it that, reading messages and studying the books either by Chico Xavier or the main books of the Codification or any other Spiritist book. We are very used to getting messages from Emmanuel and being awed by it, because he brings such a way of explaining things that goes straight into our minds when he makes comparisons as this one that he does with a chimpanzee, and we say, okay, how come haven't we thought of it in these terms, and seeing how, unfortunately, how close we still are from a chimpanzee in the way that he describes here, and sometimes we cannot understand it, we cannot see that life really goes on beyond being just a mere animal, as sometimes we tend to see humans as, right, as if we're just a mere collection of trillions of cells, and then when it's done, it's done. Maybe that's why Emmanuel starts the preface as he starts, saying this book describes some of the experiences of messengers from the spirit world, right? Meaning that it starts by affirming and by telling us, hey, we are much, much more than just the body that we have right now. We are spirits, and this book will describe experiences of some of these spirits who already lived there together with you, and they are now here. They improved a little bit. Some of them are basically the same as you are, and we are just going to tell you what they do, how they work, and what are the problems that they find, so that you and us also can learn together with these experiences, so that we can do something with these experiences.
Yeah, Mackenzie, what I find quite interesting is that right in the first paragraph, Emmanuel already talks to possible critic in ourselves, pointing out that, yeah, you know, the description, it might seem all so similar to what you know. And of course, Andrew Lewis uses our language as much as he can for us to be able to understand and grab some of the concepts and ideas of what he's talking about. But we can't forget that the spirit world is the original world, so we are trying to copy what is there, and not necessarily our words and our visualizations of the descriptions that Andrew Lewis gives us like a true understanding of what is really happening there. And Emmanuel points out that, you know, according to old philosophical concepts, don't think that this is just like a crazy idea, or it's like an invention of the human brain. Andre Luiz is just like a cheap storyteller, if I can say it that way. And he reminds us as well that just because our physical body dies, we are still the same. We don't change from one day to the other. So whatever we can communicate is according to the level of our own evolution. And we don't become angels or enlightened spirits just by a click, by letting go of the physical body and returning to the spiritual world. So, and also there's this very clear reminder, no one can elude the laws of evolution, which for me, it's like, you can say that it's nonsense, you can think that it's not true, but sooner or later, you will understand. There's just no way around it. And it doesn't mean that everybody has to believe in what we say. We are just offering here what the spiritual teachings have to offer for us as consolation and hope for our lives, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Francisco. I'm very glad that you brought this up, because it is so interesting for us to really imagine that the world that we live, it's only made out of these cells and these atoms and the smallest particles that we can find, and there's nothing else organizing this, being just a mere coincidence, right, of time, of the being there at the right time, at the right space, and then this earth being here, and all these thoughts are just created by matter, right, by a pure collection of atoms, of molecules, and then all of a sudden there's all this intelligence and all these capabilities created out of pure matter that has no intelligence in itself. So it is funny to think that way, but like you said, it's just what Spiritism has to offer. It's not to force anybody to believe in. It's not to force anybody to come and join the group or join the sect or join this religion or that religion. No, it's just evolution to human thought, right? Going one step forward, as basically everything in the world does, right? Like you just mentioned this sentence, which is great. No one can elude the laws of evolution. So we cannot stop evolution. What do we want? We want matter to be perfect, and then matter be what? God, and matter having no intelligence, creating every single intelligent being in the world. It's kind of weird. So that's basically what Emmanuel is trying to convey to us here. Once we die, we realize that we don't die, and because we don't die, we will stay as we are, or what we are. This will not be one huge step, like you also mentioned, entering the realms of angels and becoming angels. No, we will face what we are, we will face what we have built for ourselves, and we will keep our own struggle, continue our journey toward perfection. It's how evolution works. Sometimes you can have a small step or a small leap forward, but it's one of those realizations that we have while on Earth. Let's say we are in a classroom and we are not getting a concept of mathematics or geology that a teacher is trying to convey to us. And then all of a sudden, for some reason, there's something just happens and they say, oh, now I get it. It's that small step, but it's not as if we didn't have to make any effort. No, everything that we are learning, everything that we are building helps us have that small step. But if you pay attention to what I just said, everything that we are doing, everything that we are working on, it requires work. It's not by magic that I get something. It's because I already built something around myself with all the knowledge that I'm collecting that will allow me to go step by step journeying, right? And then comes Emmanuel and gives us an example of a chimpanzee living in a palace, and then he found a way to write to his brothers and sisters of the same level of evolution, but what will he say about human life? And then Emmanuel starts to make this comparison as if showing that Andre is a chimpanzee. And Emmanuel is comparing himself to a chimpanzee, telling that we are all chimpanzees in this way. What are the differences? I can explain some of the differences, but they are basically the same, because it's not a huge leap forward other than having that intelligence or having the reasoning that the chimpanzee doesn't have. All the rest is just a mere step forward, which will then, when we are able to have a second step forward, a third step forward, and so on and so forth, we will be kind of far away from where we are now. But from here to the spiritual realm, close to what we are, it's not that different. And that's what Emmanuel is trying to convey to us here, that it's how the spirit world works, because it's made out of ourselves. It's not made out of something that's way, way much better than what and who we are.
Yeah, Mackenzie, that's true. And it's interesting that there's, like, the whole purpose is very important, but I think there are some phrases that stand out. And one of them is that André Louis addresses to individuals who are devoted to spiritual growth. So here again, Emmanuel says, well, this book is for someone who wants to learn. If you're not interested in learning, just don't read the book. As easy as that. And then also he continues saying that we sometimes want something extraordinary to happen, but we forget that the laws of the universe are for all of us, and that our particular point of view, if we are very narrow-minded, it's not very real. It doesn't combine with reality. Like you just said, that we go one step at a time. He repeats that as well, that in physical death, there is no leaps. There is one evolutionary step after the other. And the importance of this book, or the objective of this book, is to remind us that we all have holy opportunities for work during these trying times. So what are these trying times? It's our incarnation, it's our life here. And the messengers that were prepared in the messenger center, the different cases of people we will talk about more in the later chapters, basically they show us how much love and care and preparation was put in the spirit world into the preparation of their reincarnation, and then how little they were actually able to use when they were in the flesh, and that it was quite difficult for them to fulfill their mission or their task, so to speak. And for us who are in the middle of life right now, it's a very good reminder to say, hey, wake up. What have you been doing with your life so far? So now is the time to turn around if you need to intensify your efforts if you need to start if that's where you are, and that's fine. And with the new revelation that you just mentioned again, it's, well, those who are interested in the Spiritist teachings, they have an arena of service here on earth, and our effort is to be in harmony with God's will, to understand that there's a higher purpose for our lives, and that we all have different opportunities and tasks to fulfill in this current lifetime. And it's not to compare us with other people, but it's to get in touch with ourselves and with our spiritual guides in order to understand, what am I here for? Where can I be most useful? What is my task? Right?
Yeah, that's correct, Francisca. It's very interesting that you just said that it's not for us to compare ourselves to others. I would say what our task is to compare ourselves to ourselves. Is compared to who I was, who I've been until yesterday, and who I am right now, right? Because if he just said that it's not an unbalanced leap, as you just read, but it's an evolutionary step. So if we want to really grow spiritually, we cannot be comparing ourselves to other people. We have to use other people's examples to look into ourselves and compare who we are now, right now, and who we were 3 years ago, who I was a year ago, who I was a week ago. Why did I just do that if I already know so much, for example? it's that task of understanding and using this book, for example, but many other books, as we just did with No Solar, and checking these lessons, checking the examples of other spirits, and saying, okay, how can I use this example in my personal life? What can I do so I don't fall like, for example, one of the characters in the book, Acelino, for example, who was a failed medium. We will have a specific chapter talking about his problems while he incarnated. And naturally, well, he was a medium and he failed as a medium. And knowing that not everybody is a medium that can work as a medium, but we are all mediums to some degree because we dream and because we are influenced by other people. So we may not be able to use the experience of being a medium, but why did he fall? Why did he commit those mistakes? And how can I not do the same? Right? So again, comparing, but not to others, but comparing to myself, right? Is the constant effort of improvement, is the constant effort of self-discipline and self-improvement, which is what Emmanuel keeps on saying here in this paragraph, right after what Francisca just said. He says, Christian Spiritism does not offer humankind only an area of study and consultation where only a few studious individuals tread worthily. It does much more than that. It reveals a workshop. See, the word work. So it's a workshop of renewal where each, and he's going to talk to us specifically right now, consciousness in training. Remember, he put this expression in quotes as if he is referring here to the example of a chimpanzee that he just said, right? So where each consciousness in training must seek his or her rightful integration into the higher life. Through what? Through inner effort, self-discipline, and self-improvement. So it's our work within ourselves. It's not just an arena where we can fight against each other by, oh no, I know this book more than you do. Oh, this thing happened, page 35, paragraph 1. It was the third word from the beginning of the paragraph. It doesn't matter. This knowledge, it doesn't bring us happiness. It doesn't bring us lasting happiness. What brings us lasting happiness is the constant effort of improving, of, as we learned in No Solar, of serving, of working for the good of ourselves, but mostly for the good of the other people who are around us. But then he begins, and I'm just going to mention the beginning of next paragraph because I know that Francisca has something to say here. He says that although it's through inner effort, self-discipline, and self-improvement, Emmanuel reminds us that there is no lack of divine cooperation for the willing worker. So what he's saying here is that, okay, it's self-effort, inner effort, self-discipline, and self-improvement, meaning you need to go, you need to do the work. It's up to us to go ahead and do something with our own lives. Choose the path that we want to and follow the instructions by this book or by other books that we want to follow. But remember, you are not alone. There's always divine cooperation for those who are willing to work, that for those who are really willing to work. And he will mention Aniceto here, right, Francisca?
Yeah, Mackenzie. That's a point that I can't emphasize enough, really, because it's so easy for us to forget that we have help from the good spirits all the time. It's on us to elevate our thoughts, to ask for help in a prayer, in good thoughts, ask for inspiration in our efforts. And the more we are connected with the higher spheres, the more easy our work will flow as well. And we're talking in work as every useful occupation. It could be our volunteer work in a spiritual center or any kind of spiritual project. It can be in our family relationships, on our work where we earn our living. It doesn't matter. And we are spiritual beings. And in sleep time, which is roughly a third of our lives, we are in the spirit world as well. So I think it's really, really important for us to remember every single day, more than once, if we can, that we have this deep connection with the spiritual world, and that they are there, the messengers, the good spirits, our guardian angel, they are all there cheering for us to succeed in our tasks here on earth. We just need to connect. We just kind of have to pick up the phone and say, hello, please help me, or, what's on today. But coming back to what you mentioned about Aniceto, it's another very striking point, because it says it's not easy to offer assistance to us humans. There's always these two sides of it. There's, yes, the good spirits are always willing to help us, but on the other hand, for us to receive their fraternal collaboration, we need to be open, because it's not just a mechanical process. So what are the prerequisites for us to be able to receive that help from the spirit world? And it says to cleanse the vessel of our hearts in order to receive, quote unquote, the living water, shedding the worldly rags and putting on the wedding garments of light eternal. It's what we've been mentioning before. We need to purify our hearts. We need to let go of all our inferior instincts and sentiments, so that we have space and love in our hearts that will help us to receive all the goodness that comes, the goodness and the support that comes from the spiritual realm for us. Right, Mackenzie?
It is interesting the way Emmanuel says that, because as Spiritism, one of the aspects of Spiritism is this religiousness, and he refers here directly to Jesus, right? Because there's a passage in the New Testament where he is talking to this Samaritan woman, where he offers her the living water, from which, if she drinks this water, she will never be thirsty again. And that's what he is referring to here. If we cleanse our hearts, we will be ready to receive the living water. Because if we think of the metaphor here, right, if we have a cup, and the cup being ourselves, right, or the vessel, right, our heart is a vessel, and if my heart is dirty with all the uncleanliness of our thoughts, of our bad actions, if we put a clean water inside, I'll have to throw it away. This water, even though it may be the purest water in the world, it will be dirty again because my vessel is dirty. We need to do our part so that when the water comes, it's as clean as it can be. We can keep receiving the water and cleaning our vessel, but then we will have to throw it away and receive it again and again and again and again until the moment where it's completely clean. So I have to cleanse the vessel, right? And it's a very interesting metaphor. And then he goes on and he uses another metaphor, using a Christian message, talking about the wedding garment, saying that we need, when we are entering a party, when we are entering a specific place that has certain requirements, we need to be properly dressed, or we need to follow the rules of the place where we're going to. And that's what he is telling us here. Okay, when we are in the world, we have certain needs, but when we go to a different world, when we go to this party, we need to dress up and to be ready to go to that party. And it's the story where Jesus talks about everybody being dressed correctly, but there's one person in that specific party, in that specific situation, which is not dressed appropriately for that situation. So are we dressed to enter the spirituality? Are we properly dressed? And who is the person able to say that? I am the person able to say if I am dressed correctly. And Emmanuel is conveying to us here that, hey, get rid of the worldly rags, and let's try to put on the wedding garments of light eternal, because that's what we are going to need once we enter the spiritual realm. Yeah, Francisca, and then Emmanuel finalizes this preface with these two great paragraphs at the very end of the preface, when he mentions a little bit the scope of what this book is going to cover. And he says something, for example, it is a partial account of 1 week of spiritual work by messengers of the good as they work alongside incarnate humans. So this whole book, these 51 chapters that we're going to study in a year from now, it's the work of a week. But it's only a partial account, meaning that there would be much, much more for us to learn. If we really want to learn, if we really want to go into these teachings, we need to make an effort to understand, to read, reread, but more than that, we need to really put our efforts in practicing or in a deep understanding that will and that can lead us to a change of the way that we behave in life, that we see life, that we see other people, by acknowledging that we are these beings that we still need to grow spiritually, mentally, psychologically. Because during this week, Andre will meet a lot of different people, but he will be side by side with this Aniceto, right? We will know more about him throughout the book, but Emmanuel describes him as a conscientious emissary and a generous benefactor. And it stresses the need for moral discipline for those who devote themselves to the noble activities of the faith in the arena of service. He's not telling us to become an Aniceto, as you mentioned before. He is telling us that for us to be able to help as Aniceto does, and as so many other great and good spirits do, it's because they became better with time. They became better than themselves. And that's the invitation here, is for us to become better than ourselves as the day passes and as our life passes, devoting ourselves to noble activities, right? Be it in our family, where we work, where we study, anywhere and any time during our lives. Emmanuel finalizes by saying this: my friend, if you are seeking the spiritual light, if materialistic existence has wearied your heart, remember that in spiritualism, investigation always leads to the infinite, found in the realm of the infinitesimal as well as in the realm of the distant stars, and only self-transformation in the light of higher spirituality will enable you to draw from the founts of the divine life. Remember that it doesn't matter how small we go or how big we go, we will always find infinity. We will always find much more than just matter. But it's not just finding that we are spirits that will make us be bigger or will make us be a better person, but it's the fact that when we know that, we seek to transform ourselves. We seek self-transformation in the light of higher spirituality that will allow us to get water from the divine light. And he ends by saying, and above all, remember that these uplifting messages from the beyond are not meant to be a mere expression of emotion, because it doesn't help us when we cry, and after crying, we don't do anything. What helps us is, okay, I cried. I am sad because I just realized what I did wrong. But now I have to do something different. I have to learn and behave differently. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Because it's not the fact that I know that I am a spirit that actually changes the way I behave in life. But it's the way that I behave in life that really shows that I not only believe, that I know that I am a spirit and that I am not going to die once this body reached its final destination, be it through time or be it through an accident. It really doesn't matter. And he ends with the last sentence saying, these uplifting messages are intended primarily for your understanding as a child of God, for our understanding as a child of God, so that we will take inventory of our own accomplishments and truly hand ourselves over to the responsibility of living in the presence of the Lord. So if these uplifting messages from the beyond don't make us understand that we are real child of God and allow us take an inventory to take account of what I did and what I didn't do and what I still need to do, these uplifting messages are still not finding the goal to which they were written to. So if we really want to put these books that we are studying, No Solar that we just finished, and this book, The Messengers, that we are studying, if we want to put them to work, it's not just to talk about them to people around us, but is mainly to hear the words, read the words, understand the message, take the examples of lives of these spirits who will be following from now on, and ask ourselves, am I going to take that road and really, really change myself? This is the question that we need to ask ourselves. Right, Francisca?
Yeah, Mackenzie, it's just amazing. I can't wait to get started. And for our friends at Kardec Radio, we would highly recommend you to get a copy of the book. You can get it at Odyssey of America or on Amazon, either in the hard copy or as an ebook format. We're going to discuss chapter by chapter starting next week, always with the reading of the chapter and then the comments from us. So if you've got any questions as well, you're more than welcome to send an email to kardecradio@gmail.com and get in touch with us through that. Thank you very much, Mackenzie. It's been great to be able to record with you again, and I hope we will have many more opportunities in the future.
Yeah, Francisca, hopefully we will be able to do this more often, which is great. And have a great week, everyone. We see you next time with chapter 1 of The Messengers in Our Home.
Yeah, many blessings to all of you. Until next week.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.